president of LUFA, and Tasha Beeds, a faculty member from the Department of Indigenous Studies at Laurentian University, at University of Sudbury. If they don't mind popping on right now, and maybe they could introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about yourselves. We could start with Fabrice. Oh, it looks like Tasha is not speaking, but we have a statement on her behalf. So we'll start with Fabrice.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Darius. So I'm Fabrice Collin. I'm the president of the Laurentian University Faculty Association. I'm also an associate professor in the Department of Mathematics and Computer Science at Laurentian Universities. And thank you for joining us. And sorry for that Zoom bombing incident. And it's so both disgusting and sensitive for the pain that many people are now feeling. So today is a very sad day, as yesterday at 10 p.m. the Laurentian University administration announced its intent to terminate agreements with Huntington University, Toronto University, and the University of Sudbury. So that is nothing less than a betrayal of the faculty, the staff, and the students who have dedicated themselves to these institutions. And the news that Laurentian Universities just unilaterally signaled its intent to tear up these agreements with these really important institutions is completely devastating. So along the four federated universities, LUFA is also involved in the CCAA proceedings. So we are committed to these proceedings, as well as the restructuring of Laurentian University. But the recent decision that has been made to terminate agreements during these processes make us question whether the Laurentian University is sharing the same commitment. And I would like to emphasize again, because I think it cannot be overemphasized, the importance of these institutions for the entire community. 52% of our students are the first of their families to attend a post-secondary education institution. 65% of our alumni choose to reside in the Sudbury area after their graduation. And it's so disheartening to see that the government absolutely refused to engage in the CCAA proceedings, and that is putting at risk the future of the institutions, the programs, the jobs, and the students. Ross Romano just recently said that he will be there for Laurentian University and for the community. But where are you, Honorable Ross Romano? It's that announcement that should not have been more than a bad April Fool's prank is now inflicting a lot of pain and suffering to the faculty members, the staff, and the students, and is impacting the economy, the local economy. So again, my question is, where are you, Honorable Ross Romano? Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Collin. Next, we're going to be hearing from a statement from Tasha Beeds. Tasha Beeds is a faculty member from the University of Sudbury. It looks like we're trying to figure out who's actually reading the statement. I was asked to read it, but I don't have it in my possession. So just bear with us for a moment so we can get that out. Okay, so we're going to figure that out. I have a statement here from the community group Save Our Sudbury that I'll read while we're waiting to organize the statement from Tasha Beats. So, the end of the Laurentian Federation will cost Sudbury $50 million in annual economic impact and will affect hundreds of students. On April 1st, it was announced that Laurentian University will be cutting its ties with the University of Sudbury, Thornloe University, and Huntington University, institutions that have helped build Laurentian, which support hundreds of students and which support most of our tricultural mandate. Without the ability to grant degrees, these independent institutions, with their own faculty and support staff, will not be able to operate. Apart from the loss of jobs, this means hundreds of students in the process of completing degrees are being abandoned by Laurentian University. Programs offered through the Federated Universities include Indigenous Studies, Gerontology, and Communications. Much of the Francophone programming is also based there. Hundreds of students are enrolled directly in these programs or are in integrated studies between both these Federated Universities and Laurentian University. Across the three Federated Universities, almost 100 faculty and staff positions are at risk from this decision, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. According to the financial statements, the three institutions are contributing almost $9 million in annual salaries. With an economic multiplier, the impact of these jobs is well over $50 million per year. Short of immediate action from the provincial government, the worst is yet to come. Over the past 24 hours, we have heard from some of the hundreds of students who are wondering how they will complete their degrees. Some of them are taking time out of their studies for final exams starting next week to complete their application for other institutions. They deserve better. We are standing in solidarity with them. We have also heard from professors and staff whose jobs are in jeopardy. They deserve better. We are standing in solidarity with them. Now we are sharing the community's perspective. This action is wrong and will damage our economy, as well as our cultural and social identity. The Sudbury community deserves better. We know that Laurentian University has until April 30th to present its full restructuring plan to the CCAA Insolvency Court. Save Our Sudbury is calling on the provincial government to immediately intervene in the process. Planning is underway for further action in advance of the emergency University Senate meeting on the morning of Tuesday, April 6th. Supporters and the media are encouraged to visit Save Our Sudbury, the Facebook page, in order to get details on what our event is going to look like. We're going to hear from Fabrice. Another measure in place to make sure that we're making sure that everything is safe. It's going to take a while to mute and unmute people. We're just going to hear from...
I'm ready to go for Tasha Darius.
Okay, we're going to hear from Fabrice first because he wants to echo the statement in French.
Okay.
Merci encore Darius. Donc sans peut-être répéter complètement en détail tout ce qui a été dit en français, je veux quand même rappeler que cette annonce qui a été faite tard dans la soirée d'hier de l'intention de l'université de mettre un terme aux ententes avec les universités fédérées est complètement tout horrible et complètement déconcertante. Donc, c'est une trahison, ni plus ni moins, de tous les membres du corps professoral, des étudiants, ainsi que des membres du personnel. Donc, encore une fois, on ne saurait mettre trop d'emphase sur l'importance de ces institutions pour la communauté tout entière. Et rappelons que 52% des étudiants fréquentant les universités fédérées sont des étudiants de première génération à pouvoir accéder à l'éducation postsecondaire. De même, 65% des anciens et des anciennes choisissent de résider dans la région de Sudbury après leurs études. Soulignant aussi que nous sommes engagés, comme vous le savez tous, dans des procédures sous l'égide de la LACC et qui doivent conduire à une restructuration de l'Université Laurentienne. Nous sommes engagés pleinement de bonne foi dans ce processus et cette annonce qui a été faite alors que les procédures sont toujours en cours nous amène à douter des motivations de l'administration laurentienne à ce sujet. Rappelons également que les professeurs, les étudiants, les membres du personnel n'ont pas à être victimes d'un sous-financement chronique qui a été présent depuis de nombreuses années en fait. Ça se compte maintenant, ça se chiffre maintenant en décennies, de même qu'à des décisions vraiment très malheureuses qui ont été prises par les administrations précédentes. Et c'est pour ça que le gouvernement se doit d'intervenir. Donc c'est le grand absent à la table en ce moment. Et l'honorable Ross Romano l'a dit récemment, nous serons là pour l'Université Laurentienne. Donc encore une fois, où êtes-vous, Monsieur Romano? C'est maintenant le temps d'intervenir. Merci.
Thank you, Fabrice. Chris, if you're ready now, we'll hear the statement.
I'm going to be speaking on behalf of Tasha Beeds, who is a new hire at University of Sudbury in the Faculty of Indigenous Studies. And I just want to be very clear that these are her words and that I'm reading them on her behalf. As you can imagine, the shock of what's happened over the last few days is hit all of us at University of Sudbury very hard. And despite her best efforts, Tasha just was too overwhelmed, especially with the bombing, to be able to deliver these words herself. Laurentian University is becoming more and more one of the most horrific colonial stories I've ever experienced when it comes to Indigenous people and education. None of the Indigenous people or faculty from Indigenous Studies will be employed. Laurentian will take the Indigenous Studies program without taking the people who are from the discipline, including Indigenous faculty and sessionals and our non-Indigenous allies. As I understand it, it will be because I'm still on probation. I will not receive the compensation that faculty will, nor will any of the sessional lecturers. I, like very many Indigenous, I am one of very few Indigenous faculty, staff, and sessionals. Welcome to the colonial version of indigenization at Laurentian University. I'm sickened. Laurentian will take the entire Indigenous Studies Department's program, classes, history, one of the first Indigenous Studies programs in all of Turtle Island, all of our beautiful elders and thinkers who contributed to the building of that program, including Edna Matuabi, Jim Dumont, Emily Ferries, all of the Indigenous minds, intellectual legacies, heart, and thought, and they will take that and profit from it, receiving the student tuition money and government supplementary funds. Laurentian will deliver the Indigenous study courses we collectively developed as Indigenous people and non-Indigenous allies, actually trained in the discipline of Indigenous studies in our own respective Indigenous nations' intellectual legacies, languages, and knowledges. They want the money, they want our knowledge, and they don't want us in the way. It is beyond disgusting. This is my call out to every Indigenous person, nation, and politician, and other Indigenous scholars, academics, and allies on Turtle Island to shout at the rooftops, send messages, and stand in solidarity with all of the Indigenous people and non-Indigenous allies, students, staff, and faculty who have gone through the Department of Indigenous Studies, and let Laurentian know this type of behavior is reprehensible and unacceptable. It's 2021. We need to just say enough is enough and pull every support from colonial institutions who behave like Laurentian. We need to start building our own educational institutions independent of non-Indigenous colonial ones, rooted in our Indigenous nations. I am in if there are movers and shakers who want a dedicated, soon-to-be unemployed Indigenous academic. I don't want to give them my tears, but I'm just so upset.
Thank you for reading that, Chris. Yeah, today isn't a good day for many people. A lot of people are very scared about their programs, and a lot of people are very worried. I think for students, it's scary because, you know, we're all supposed to be Laurentian students and we're all supposed to be in it together, but everybody doesn't know what's going to happen anymore, especially when we're all, it's like a family being broken up, right? And it's exactly as the statement said, you know, they're going to be able to profit off all of that without needing them in the way. And that's just not okay. And it's not okay that, you know, this decision comes unilaterally and without any sort of say from anybody from the Laurentian community. So now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking comments from both faculty, professors, and community members. A lot of people have a lot to say and a lot of stories to share. So I'm going to ask at this time that we start a speakers list. So if you want to be added to that speakers list, I'm going to do my best to keep track of everybody so that everybody gets their time to talk. But please feel free to message in the Zoom chat and I'll add you to the list, or feel free to raise your hand in the Zoom call and I will make sure that you're able to get some speaking time. So first up is Jen Johnson. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute.
Thank you, Darius. Merci tout le monde, and miigwech, Tasha, for those words. Several of my students just left the meeting because of what happened at the beginning, and they would have spoken this evening. I have statements from multiple students who wanted to talk about the issues that brought them to the field of women's gender and sexuality studies, and they include things like, you know, being assaulted by images, violent images, when you are just trying to get through your daily work. So the beginning of this meeting, through no fault of the organizers, is a key example as to why we actually need people studying feminism, decolonization, and acting on those ideas. We have to do it in our daily lives just to survive. And so theory and practice, here we are dealing with that very thing in this moment. I should introduce myself. My name is Jen Johnson. I'm the chair of the Department of Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies within the Faculty of Arts. Happens to be located at Thorneloe University at Laurentian University. And I also hold a dubious role of being a faculty senator. And I joined Senate just over 2 years ago because I could see that people did not have a very good understanding of the Federation and what actually happens with the Federation. So when students pay Laurentian to take a course, the money goes to Laurentian. And there's usually, if the student is taking a whole program, like in my program, there's a little bit of a grant that comes from the province as well. And that money goes to Laurentian first, and Laurentian takes a cut. And that allows students to use the library and email the registrar and some other things we don't know where that money goes. And then the money comes to women's and gender studies. And we pay 2 full-time faculty and 5 part-time faculty to offer 2 really large successful programs, okay? And this has been happening for just over 42 years. Just over 42 years. The first Women's and Gender Studies courses happened at Laurentian. They were started by someone named Mercedes Steedman. You may or may not know her out of labor studies. Laurentian didn't want that type of teaching. And so the feds picked them up, Thorneloe picked them up. So here we are 42 years later. 2 years ago, Laurentian decided it needed a bigger cut. And now we know why they needed that bigger cut, because someone bought extra Lamborghinis and didn't tell anybody. All right, it wasn't us that did that. It wasn't us that spent the money, but it is us who's taken the first hit, first of many hits for Laurentian, for the errors that have been made. My students do not deserve this. The person who would have spoken this evening is a single parent of 4 children. She took OSAP in order to take not even a full degree, but a certificate with us so that she could enter graduate work in the fall. So you're telling me now what's standing between her and her graduation with that certificate is the fact that that Laurentian won't let us hit send on summer courses. And not only that, they don't want to recognize anything else. I'm angry. I'm angry for my students. I'm angry for the people who started our program. And I'd be damned if it will die on our watch. So I need you, Sudbury, to stand up with us and recognize that this is the shot across the bow that will bring bigger and bigger problems. Our students are deserving. Northern Ontario is deserving, Indigenous learners are deserving, Francophone learners are deserving, and those who come to join us here from everywhere else and all the beautiful places you come, you are deserving. We are standing up for you. Thank you. Miigwech. Merci.
Thank you very much, Jen. That was very well said. And I think that, you know, programs like that are what we need to be able to learn about what makes spaces safe, right? In the next couple of days, it's going to be really hard for a lot of people. A lot of people that you've never even heard of are going to show up and start trying to quantify the value of your education. And that is something that only you alone will be able to choose. And we want to make sure that we're able to fight for Laurentian so that you can choose what your own education looks like, and that the value of your education isn't being quantified in, you know, dollars or anything really, because only at the end of the day, only you could decide what you want to learn, and only you can, you know, that education should be in your control, and Laurentian students deserve better. So, Claire. Sorry, not Claire. I jumped the gun because I see your hand raised. You're added to the speakers list, but next we're going to hear from Morgan Cashmore. And I want to keep in mind that I'm only able to see some people's names fully on Zoom because sometimes they go a little long. So I'm going to do my best, but I got that one right, I think. So there you go, Morgan.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. So I would like to speak because I would like to shed some light on some of the spending that's happening at Laurentian University. I would like to thank Adam Kirkwood for organizing a lot of this information and sharing it with me. Adam had the opportunity to speak at the Board of Governors meeting, which he did a fabulous job. I was then blocked from speaking, which was quite unfortunate. So I'm happy to have the platform to speak today. In 2019, the Laurentian University administration accounted for almost $7.5 million a year in salaries, with 5 administrative staff having salaries over $200,000 a year and 15 staff members making over $150,000 a year. Laurentian University has roughly 10,000 students and 53 administrative staff members, all of which are making north of $100,000 a year. When you compare Laurentian's administrative staff to other universities such as Nipissing, Lakehead, Trent, and Carleton, Laurentian University has 5.3 administrative employees per 1,000 students, compared to 3.2, 4.7, 4, and 3.4 respectively. Laurentian University has 300 students more than Lakehead, but we're spending almost $850,000 more per year on administrative salaries. Laurentian University has 1,000 students more than Trent. However, we're paying more than $2.5 million a year on administrative salaries. Laurentian University has twice as many students as Nipissing, but we're paying $5 million a year extra in administrative staff. This is where the cuts need to be, not to programs that current students are enrolled in. Students shouldn't have to lose out and lose our future because LU doesn't have the ability to manage a budget. Because of what have been countless reckless acts in regards to finances, students like myself are stuck in a terrible situation. This university is now a place where students like myself don't want to be because we can't count on our university to ensure that we receive the degree that we came here to study. Personally, I have paid 3 years worth of tuition and fees totaling north of $22,000, and after 3 years of working hard and being on track to graduate with honors, my entire life's plan is thrown off course because the Laurentian University can't budget and President Haché and the Board of Governors don't know how to handle finances and are being irresponsible. I'm in my 3rd year of majoring in women, gender, and sexuality studies, and I'm going to lose my program and graduate with what? A sociology degree? That's not equivalent. I fully intend on going to graduate school for women's studies, and I can't do that without an undergraduate degree in women's studies. I paid tuition and fees for 3 years, and Laurentian University is going to say what? Oh, sorry, here's a degree in something else? That's not good enough, and I don't accept that. I'm paying for a degree in women's studies, and I deserve that degree. I have worked hard for 3 years and currently have a GPA in women's studies of 8.0, and now I can't graduate with my degree? That's not right. There needs to be a new plan that doesn't hurt those who pay to be here, who work hard to be here, and didn't cause this financial crisis. President Haché, your countless poor decisions are costing students like myself, and you're not facing any repercussions. You have sent out countless emails talking to students about how we come first, students are the top priority, student life won't change. And then you send out that email yesterday saying how you're going to dissolve the federations and put hundreds of students at risk of not graduating. That's selfish. What students are you referring to in these emails that come first? Because it's clearly not the students at Laurentian University and definitely not the students of the Federation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maureen. That was very well said. And no, LU students shouldn't have to settle for less. I think you mentioned, student life, right? And we were rated last in student life, even before we went into lockdown and had to move to e-learning. This is absolutely unacceptable. We've gone from being a university to, that maybe wasn't the best. And maybe most of the great things on happen only happened because of passionate faculty and student organizers. And we've gone to a place where it's embarrassing a little bit, quite frankly. And that's absolutely not okay. You shouldn't have to worry about getting less than the degree that you decided to come to university with. And you should be able to not have to worry about master's equivalencies when it comes to your graduate studies. So, okay, so the next person I have on my list is Claire. 4 pages on this Zoom call. So I am cycling through to find people, and a few other of the moderators are as well. Let's see here. There we go.
Okay, I think at the heart of a lot of this is a lot of the administrators don't know what a university is. And I've been associated with the university since I was about 19 years old. So I'm going back 50 years. And there's a real problem because a lot of our administrators are not academically astute. They don't understand a university is a place of learning and not a business. And I think one of the biggest problems is we've had administrators such as good old Dominique and others who really had a political and business mindset. A university is not a business. And you don't, you just can't treat students as if they're pawns in the game. This isn't new, it's been going on for a long time, but it's gotten much worse in the last decade or so. And I think if they all need a course, they all need to go back and understand a university is a place of learning, not a place of counting nickels and dimes. And yes, you have to be able to manage, but you can't decide arbitrarily to cut programs. I remember back in the Harris days, or the harass days, as I called them, they wanted to basically get rid of humanities and social sciences because that wasn't making money for their friends. They wanted professional schools because they were creating the little robots that would go off and work in the industries that they liked. They put no value on humanities and social sciences. So I don't know, maybe we have to send them back to school. But I'm just worried that if we keep hiring presidents who know nothing about what a university is at the heart of it, Laurentian is doomed. Anyway, that's all I have to say for now. I get very emotional about all this because it's watching so many decades of hard work, you know, falling apart.
Thank you very much, Claire. No, of course, you're absolutely right. And it is, you know, it is very emotional. I think that, you know, we, our university shouldn't be run like a business. It's not, students aren't cattle and we shouldn't be treated like cattle. And we're not in a factory to churn out degrees, right? We're here for valuable education and education of our choosing. So to have those decisions come unilaterally from a force that knows nothing about education, clearly, is absolutely unacceptable. So the next person I have on my list is Edwidge Dominique. So let me try to find, there we go.
Bonsoir. Bonsoir, je suis Edwidge Dominique Sicagnon, étudiante à l'école des sciences de l'éducation de l'Université Laurentienne. Ma préoccupation est la suivante. Les décisions sont prises sans prendre en compte les réalités des étudiants. Et il y a l'impression que l'administration ne prend pas en compte nous ne sommes pas invités aux tables de discussion pour notre propre apprentissage. Nous ne sommes pas invités aux tables de discussion pour prendre les décisions concernant l'université. Et ça, c'est vraiment déplorable parce que nous ne sommes pas des enfants, nous sommes des adultes. Et pour prendre une décision, on doit pouvoir prendre en compte nos réalités et l'impact que cette décision aura sur notre apprentissage. Mais ce que je constate, c'est que l'administration prend des décisions sans prendre en compte les problèmes des étudiants. Et ça fait que nous sommes tous stressés. On ne sait pas si nous allons finir l'année prochaine, si nous allons être à Laurentian ou bien à Sudbury ou bien quoi. Nous sommes vraiment tous confus par rapport à ce problème-là, par rapport à ces décisions qui sont prises ces derniers jours-là. On ne sait même pas où nous en sommes avec tout ça. Moi, on aimerait vraiment que nous soyons invités sur la table de discussion pour pouvoir prendre les décisions ensemble concernant notre apprentissage, concernant l'avenir de l'Université Laurentienne. Ce que j'avais à dire. Merci.
Thank you very much. The next person on the list is Marianne Corbier. So let me see. My list is also running thin. So if anybody else has anything that they want to say or more to add, then feel free to absolutely raise your hand in the Zoom call or message me in chat, and we can make sure that you have your voices heard.
Are you hearing me now? Okay. Yeah, our department chair in Indigenous Studies has asked that I read the letter. He had to leave. He's not able to stay beyond this moment. That we had drafted for people to hear and sign if they wish. He put it in the chat. So the letter, an open letter to protect Indigenous studies at the Laurentian University Federation. In response to the insolvency process and the possible termination of Indigenous studies, the faculty, Indigenous community leaders, and other members of the Indigenous education community from coast to coast are coming together to sign an open letter calling on decision makers in the insolvency process to ensure the continuation of the Indigenous studies program. Please show your support and add your name to this letter. In response to the CCAA insolvency process at Laurentian, and so on, we call on the University of Sudbury President John Meehan, Laurentian University President Robert Haché, Special Advisor Dr. Alan Harrison, Honorable Justice of the Ontario Superior Court Sean Dunphy, and Honorable Chief Justice of the Superior Court Jeffrey Morowitz to ensure the continuation of the Indigenous Studies program. Grounded in its long-term relationships with Indigenous community elders and knowledge holders, it is a well-respected, in-demand program in Northern Ontario. Like all Indigenous studies programs, it has made significant and seminal contributions to the resurgence of Indigenous sovereignty, self-determination, and decolonization at the local and national levels through its research and expansive curriculum. Some of the most notable Indigenous minds and non-Indigenous allies in the country have come through the Department of Indigenous Studies. And this department has also made many significant contributions to the indigenization of the Laurentian University Federation, including contributing to the development of the Indigenous Social Work Program and the Master's Program in Indigenous Relations. Moreover, with its comprehensive Anishinaabe language curriculum developed over many years, Indigenous Studies is uniquely positioned to contribute to Laurentian University's Anishinaabe Revitalization Project and its recently announced vision of becoming a trilingual university. Indigenous studies programs have developed models of scholarship that bring Indigenous knowledges and intellectual legacies into the academy in real and significant ways. They have also served as important sites for the education of Indigenous students who have gone on to leadership positions that improve the quality of life for Indigenous peoples. Similarly, non-Indigenous students have developed critical skills to work together with Indigenous people as trusted allies. The termination of the Indigenous Studies program in Sudbury at Laurentian would represent a significant turning away from Laurentian University's tricultural mandate and its commitment to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action on Indigenous education. It would have an immense impact on Indigenous communities and Canada and would represent the first Indigenous Studies program to be shuttered since the discipline began in 1969. We urge you to ensure the continuation of the program at the Laurentian University Federation, and all of us faculty in Indigenous Studies have signed it already. And now, if I may take just a few more moments to speak in a bit more depth on the Anishinaabe and Wind programming aspect of our program. People have been expressing their disgust at what has been happening, particularly since yesterday. And yes, I totally share that disgust, and I might get emotional here. People, I'm sure everybody knows that a people's language is the core of their identity. And Hache should know, I've certainly made it clear in the Anishinaabe Revitalization Committee that was established at Laurentian under Hache's leadership without any reaching out to the University of Sudbury. I'm sure it doesn't take much information digging to find out that University of Sudbury has, ever since its inception, not the inception of the Indigenous Studies program, not the inception of the University of Sudbury. Our language has always been the core of our programming. That's how I ended up there unexpectedly over 30 years ago. And in those 30 years, I have had the privilege, thanks to the foresight of people like Jim Dumont, the late Stella Kenoshmeg, and others who founded the department, who made the language a central component of Indigenous studies, to have been able, as a full-time faculty member, to create thorough, detailed resources to enable those students who are able to pursue studies of my language, our language, the Anishinaabe people's language, to the advanced level as best we can devise such programs. There are lessons to enable them to make sense in our language. Laurentian is touting things like its signage as an indication of its commitment to Anishinaabe revitalization. Signage alone is not going to revitalize our language. At this sensitive point in our language's history, what we need are a range of thorough and varied resources. And that's what U of S has enabled to be developed for the past 30 years. And with unilaterally saying Indigenous studies courses, and those include Anishinaabe courses, will not count toward Laurentian degrees. Students who have been wanting to learn the language, and I hear from students regularly, not just credit ones, but non-credit ones who are looking for resources. Hardly, if there's any other university in Ontario that has detailed resources of the sort that developed in Indigenous Studies Department at the U of S that are as detailed, I would be surprised. I am 90% certain that the only thing most universities are able to do, due to human resource limitations, our elders are aging, the mother tongue speakers. I am one of the younger ones who grew up with this language as my mother tongue and have had the privilege of working with linguists to find out ways to help students make sense of it so they can make sense in it. All that is being totally disregarded. Hache talks as if Laurentian is breaking ground on something that U of S broke ground on over 40 years ago. It is absolutely disgusting. And if you had any appreciation of the meaning of our 7 grandfather teachings, those include honesty and respect and so on. I guess those are 2 key ones. It is deeply, deeply upsetting. I totally understand Tasha's inability to read the statement she prepared. I am barely managing to stay coherent on this. So thoroughly insulting to not just me personally, but where my fellow community members, my fellow mother tongue speakers of my language, my fellow Anishinaabe were to know of what is being done here, they would be equally disgusted. Just another gross instance of colonization, extracting knowledge for not really to help us. That's the claim. If they were to help us, they would allow people like, they would acknowledge at least that resources exist, that it's not, they're not the ones breaking ground on this. I'm getting incoherent here. I'll stop there.
Thank you very, very much, Marianne. That was very impactful and very emotional. I don't think anybody should be deprived the ability to learn about their community and deprived the ability to learn about their language. And University of Sudbury offers 2 widely underrepresented populations to be able to have that outlet, to be able to educate and to be able to teach, right? University, I always like to think of Huntington, Thornlow, and University of Sudbury being schools where people get to learn about themselves, right? About their identities and all the things that, you know, make them who they are. Next on the speakers list, we have a question from Jose Turcot.
Okay, hi. Yes, it's a very sad moment. I don't understand why, after all those years, it was going fine between and the Federated University. How come they, it was decided unilaterally to cut the bridge. And it's very unfortunate. And I'm sure, like I see a lot of arts program that would maybe disappear. I don't know. For the moment, we don't really know what will happen for these programs. I don't know if one of the plan is to bring some of those programs at Laurentian. That's not what the president said, but I just wonder if this is one of the possibility. So, and I'm hoping this is something that would be feasible. The other thing is people won't like what I'm going to say, and I don't mean that what's taught in those universities are not important. It is important, and I find that the material that is being taught in those universities seems to be different from a lot of programs at Laurentian, and I think we should have more of it. Now, that being said, this is awkward because I have a friend that is in economy, So then her perspective is to look at the money, you know, the expenses of it. So I've been looking at and Fabrice, you're there. So we've been looking at the I can't pronounce it properly, affidavit, anyway, and cost per student. And Fabrice, you were involved in this, and I don't know, I know you've been doing so many things you might not remember, but it seems that the cost per student is a lot more in the Federated University than at Laurentian. Is that something, am I right, or am I not understanding it properly? So I would like to hear from Fabrice, if it's possible, to unmute him. I need to understand, because I'm a senator and I will have to vote for those things, I guess. I need to understand the whole picture of it.
Yeah, I don't know exactly to what you refer. You might refer to my affidavit, which is in response, right?
Yeah.
To the affidavit made by President Ashe, and we made that to correct a lot of misinformation that has been circulated, and the President Ashe in his affidavits focused a lot on the cost per student and forgot to mention that in fact we got more revenue per student. So the difference, even if some program might be more costly, and it's because we're serving a broader community, we have a broader mandate. We're a bilingual, tricultural university, and that mandate is critical. So the revenues we're receiving per student are also much larger. And in fact, the difference between our revenues per student compared to other similar sized university and and the additional cost per student, in fact, in other words, sorry, I'm sorry, I'm struggling. Past days have been really long, but there is enough money in the system. That's what we wanted to flag in the sense that we should, with the money we're receiving, the revenues per student, there should be no problem to offer all the courses, all the programs. The problem, as you know, is that there was some, and in fact, when I'm saying some, I should say a lot of mismanagement and poor governance decisions.
I'm just referring to, and you won't remember, but it was on page 300 of your affidavit. It's in an annex, and it was comparing the cost per student at Laurentian University versus Thornlow versus Huntington University versus University of Sudbury. That's what I'm referring to. Because I'm expecting the president to talk about that. So I just want to be prepared here.
Yeah, so in response to your question, yes, the president was referring and amalgamated in his affidavit all these costs, while in fact the Laurentian University is the only university that is directly involved in the CCAA process. That's the only employer. So that we pointed out that presenting the fact and amalgamating all the costs for all the Federated University was misleading. And if I may, and that's to the point of many of the preceding, faculty members, students who spoke, education is not only about the cost. Yeah. We should have a leadership that could emphasize and could, convince the government about the importance of our institution. It's going beyond a simple matter of cost. Otherwise, everything will be or would be always too costly. you know, it's about the mission we have, the mission for the students and the mission for the society. And we should, you know, be able to count on a leadership that is capable of expressing these values, right? And carrying these values.
Thank you, Fabrice, and thank you, Jose. The next person I've got on my list is Estella Bouchard.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep, we're hearing you.
Perfect. I'm at work, sorry. So it might be a little bit noisy, but I just wanted to add on to a point that came up quite often, and that is that our leadership treats our university like it's a business. And a lot of, I find our peers are also kind of being wrapped up in that. And I hear a lot, why would you take a program like that if you're not going to make money off of it? And I say it was never about money. I don't understand this mentality of being educated just to make money. I wouldn't endure a terrible, strenuous work schedule with a full-time university to do something I hate, but I'll be making money. Education was never about that. And I think that's what we need. We just need, peers and people in a position of leadership that can sort of break that constant mentality that keeps coming through and sort of taking our color away, I should say.
No, absolutely well said. I think that, like I said, a lot of people are going to be trying to judge the value of students based off the money they would earn after they graduate. And that's not what we want to see. And nobody can quantify the choices we make. Nobody can monetize or assign monetary values to our education like that, right? We are fully committed to our paths, and we choose our education very carefully. And, students don't need other people to be telling them if their education is worth less than they're paying for, right? So yeah, that is something that I've been seeing a lot about whether or not we should let programs die in favor of saving other programs that will get students jobs. It's not just about jobs. It's not just about the money that we're going to be making after we graduate. So.
Yeah, exactly. So I often mention the Nordic model of higher education, and people hate it. People hate it because the Nordic countries are more socialist, and that terrifies people. But when you go to Norway, sure, your groceries are a little more expensive, your taxes are a little bit higher, but you don't see this massive discrepancy between the two extreme socioeconomic statuses. You don't have extremely rich people, you don't have extremely poor people, you don't have people having their education snagged away from them. Education and knowledge is a way to get away from ignorance and is a way to make the world a more compassionate place. And I think right now, during a pandemic, that's exactly what we need. And this is devastating, and I don't understand why people aren't making a bigger deal out of it.
Very well said. Thank you. Next, we have Rachel Halliburton.
Hi, I'm a professor at the University of Sudbury as well, and I just want to thank everybody for coming out and for speaking. And I may get upset as well because this is truly a devastating day, and I'm perhaps not as articulate as some of my colleagues, so please bear with me as I try to express my thoughts. I wanted to pick up on something that Jen said right at the beginning, and I think it's really important. I think there's, in the larger community, as well as sometimes on the Laurentian campus, there's a misunderstanding about how the Federated Universities are funded. And I was absolutely enraged when I read the email that Hache sent out, where he presented as there are millions of dollars that are being spent on the federated colleges. To me, that's actually untrue. The reason that we don't get funding directly, as I understand it, is that the Federated Colleges initially had a denominational identity and still do. And we're not allowed to receive funding directly from the government. So the funding we receive from Laurentian is funding that the government sends to Laurentian for the students that we teach. It's not we're not stealing money from Laurentian to offer our programs. What we're actually doing is Laurentian is the caretaker, in some sense, the larger institution that gets the funding the government gives to offer our programs. So I thought that was such a misconstrual of what's actually true. And I just wanted to give one anecdote just to show you how fast and loose Laurentian has played with the Federated Colleges, all of which, by the way, have been well managed, all of which have put students first, I think, in a really genuine way. If I take what my own students have told me seriously about how happy they are that they discover these little havens up on the hill. Last spring, during exam season, so Laurentian charges fees to the Federated Colleges for everything that it does for us, like quote, enrolling students in our programs and so on and so forth. And they keep raising those fees. So last spring, as everyone knows, COVID had hit. We were all suddenly asked to manage our own exams, most of which were done online. And I think, if I'm correct, none were done in the gym. And the University of Sudbury apparently got a bill for $40,000 for managing the spring exams last year, and for paying for for Laurentian claimed that it had to pay for photocopies of the exams. And of course, there were no exams held in any way that would have required physical exams. Plus, in the years when we did have physical exams, we did our own photocopying, sent it to the registrar's office to be given to our students. So I just want everyone to know, who's not perhaps familiar with the Federated Colleges, and maybe my colleagues could give more information if they have it and if they want to. But there's this idea that somehow Laurentian, out of its own generosity, chooses to give millions to us, which is actually a real misconstrual of the situation. And I just wanted to say one more thing, and this is to echo what my colleague and friend Marianne just said. These colleges are the original founding institutions of Laurentian. We created Laurentian. Laurentian didn't sort of, again, generously say that we could occupy space on their campus. We're the institutions that created Laurentian, and we've been a haven, and I think Jen mentioned this as well, we've been a haven for programs that Laurentian itself has thought not worthy of giving space to. And Indigenous Studies is one of those programs. So, the University of Sudbury really embodies exactly the bilingual tricultural identity that Hache is now claiming for the larger university. And really the only reason he claimed that the larger university lives up to these mandates is because the Federated Colleges did these things first. So that's all I wanted to say. And I just hope that people challenge Hache on even his economic claims, which are entirely problematic. Thanks.
Thank you, Rachel. No, that was very, very insightful. I think that I've heard that too. A lot of people who think that, those Federated universities somehow are, very much dependent on necessarily the main campus, but it's a relationship that requires everybody, right? It's not like all the problems are going to disappear because we break our family apart and we leave some students out in the cold, right? It's not a matter of trying to sacrifice people in order to get other goals, right? So next I have Megan Lalonde on my speakers list. And I should be taking my time to line up these speakers to get them ready before they talk, but I'm getting really wrapped up in hearing everybody speak, so forgive me. Just give me a moment to find where Megan is on the Zoom call so that I can get them ready.
Can everyone hear me?
We hear you.
Okay, perfect. Well, first of all, thank you for giving the space and opportunity to speak. So my name is Megan, and I'm currently a teaching assistant within the Women and Gender Studies program. I'm a student of the Humanities program, and I'm a graduate of the Women's Studies program and Indigenous Studies program. And I want to read a post that I've been circulating on my social media, but first I wanted to really speak to what Rachel called the haven up on the hill. And that's exactly what Thornlow is to me and has been to me, and it has genuinely saved my life. I remember very clearly being a part of the review committee for the Women's Studies program last year. And I remember sitting at a table full of students who went out of their way to come and join the review to speak to how instrumental and foundational this program is to them in the way that they contribute to their community and the way that it shaped them as a thinker and a person. So now I'm going to read something that I've been circulating because I'm having trouble putting my anger and my frustration into clear words, but I managed to do that today. So last night at 10:00 p.m., the night before a long weekend with final exams looming, Laurentian University's president announced the institution is terminating the relationship with the Federated Universities as a direct result of the CCA proceedings that are currently unfolding. And I believe that this establishes a very dangerous precedent that is grave to ignore. And in their insensitive, and cruelly timed email, Laurentian University is attempting to portray programs like Indigenous Studies and Women's Studies as an unpopular program of financial liability, which, as Rachel pointed out, is simply not the truth, and it could not be further from the truth. And this careless decision as well makes it very evident to me, and as many others have spoken to as well, that Laurentian's commitment to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission to Indigenous people, as well as their tricultural mandate, was nothing more than a smokescreen, especially considering that Indigenous Studies at Laurentian is the second oldest program of its kind in North America, and so many amazing thoughts or thinkers and minds have been carried through that program. And I think that in revoking further education for Indigenous people in the North and treating Indigenous faculty and students as if they're expendable tokens is absolutely shameful, and Laurentian and the president should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. And these decisions are symbolic of the ongoing settler colonial legacy on these lands, which is a very blatant and clear erasure of the responsibilities to the homelands and the people that this university occupies. And I compare what's going on right now as we've become the sacrificial lambs of Laurentian's criminal mistakes. And Laurentian means to suggest that to dig themselves out of this disastrous mismanagement of their finances, it means completely and utterly abandoning students and faculty of these programs of the Federated Universities. It's a very dangerous precedent that suggests that insolvency legislation is a tool that can just be taken up to impose devastating cuts and job losses upon a public institution. So I graduated from the Women's Studies program as well as the Indigenous Studies program last spring. And being a student of these programs afforded me, I can't say this enough, lifelong connections with like-minded people who are also dedicated to the work that I am, which is building just and sustainable futures. I've made lifelong connections and friends with these people, and I would not be the same person that I am today without them. And in fact, I first witnessed my lived experiences and theories about the world as an Anishinaabe woman reflected in the university curriculum in these very classrooms, in this haven up on the hill. And the professors and the colleagues that I've gained close relationships with have served really important in anchoring my commitment to gender-based advocacy, anti-racism, and decolonization in a way that I didn't see in any of the other programs at Laurentian. I'm forever shaped by those relationships and the opportunities as well that were afforded to me because of them. And now these people who I've become very close to are facing the immediate and detrimental consequences of this outrageous decision. And the ability of faculty and students to educate and shape the community in Sudbury in these irreplaceable ways has been cut short, and the impact is beyond words. And I want to leave it at that this impact is beyond words, and this is the first day of many hard days. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak again.
Thank you very much, Megan. I think that I'm going a little bit off script here, but I think what I'm going to do is anybody who wants to get their video, because this Zoom call is being recorded, anybody who wants their individual clip of them speaking, I think some of these stories absolutely need to be shared across social media, and people need to hear these things. I didn't ask if this is okay, but we're gonna do it anyways, and I don't mind spicing that video up, so it's just your audio clips if that's something that you guys want, and then we could try to get those out into the community as soon as possible, because some of the, I mean, you guys really are all very well spoken, and this is all very amazing stories that we're hearing, and we absolutely we can't let this stay in just a 93-person Zoom call. So anyways, next up we have Rial Filion.
Yes, thank you, Darius, and thank you everyone for these great things that you've been expressing. And I'm very impressed and moved by the eloquence of the students in particular. Oh, I may not be able to do this, but I'm going to try. I'm inspired by Jen's anger, you know? The contempt with which faculty and students I'm going to get through it, hang on. It's contempt. It's contempt with the work that we do if it doesn't bring $1. It's contempt with the students' choices if they don't choose the programs that bring in the dollars. And it's a complete misunderstanding of what a university is. People come to university and they spend 4 years there. And they make all kinds of choices within those 4 years, not just the choice of their program, because some people change programs because of the things they discover. I should preface this. I teach philosophy. We're not looking to graduate 1 million philosophers, but philosophy is integral to a university experience, because philosophy, like all of these other programs, actually don't just shape someone for a professional program. Coming to university ultimately is about self-knowledge through these various pursuits of different knowledge. And I was listening to all of these students, and that's what they have. The ones that they're finishing their program, they have this self-knowledge, and they came to university, and that's what they're taking, and that's what they're taking away from it. I love this. I heard this from a colleague a long time ago who said, in specific, when it comes to philosophy, it's not going to get you a job, but it's going to get you the promotion, because you know yourself. You come to university to find yourself and to know yourself, and you're assisted in that with people like me who spent my life engaging with students in my classrooms in a little place like the University of Sudbury, and that's what's has happened. And we're in those 4 years. This is what's going to get lost in Laurentian 0.2, because that's what's happened with this termination. I think it's Thierry I've read this from a colleague on Facebook, but that's what's happened. Literally, we're not moving to Laurentian 2.0. We're moving towards Laurentian 0.2, a shrinking of the university of experience. Because in that 4 years, remember, you take other classes, you meet other people from different fields, you talk, you learn these different views. That's being cut, because in the very logic, in the contemptuous logic that the president is arguing for, is only those programs that bring in money. It doesn't say bring in money, but and this is the contemptuous part, he says those programs that students really want. And that's the contempt of all of the other students, that if you didn't choose a program that students really want, then you're making a stupid choice. It's utterly contemptible, and it's an extraordinary moment, I think, in Ontario right now, that all of these decisions are being made. These people like me, tenured faculty, being essentially laid off, and there are more coming, because Laurentian University has managed to take this out of what universities do, which is talk, work things out, collegially govern themselves, taken away from that, taken into the protection of the courts because of mismanagement of finances. It's extraordinary. But I'm actually hopeful. Listening to students, the students that have spoken here, I'm actually hopeful because your eloquence, I think, will carry the day. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Rial. And this is really emotional. I never really, I mean, you know, reading about that, I guess it is only dawning on me a little bit now that this is really like losing family members, right? They really are trying to tear us apart, and it is very upsetting, right? The things that make our university great, the self-discovery that students get along the way in choosing their own paths, is all being taken away. Next up on my speakers list, I have Claire, and I'm also, the list is running kind of short, but if anybody else really wants to, has anything else they want to say, any questions, anything that they want to express, absolutely just raise your hand in the Zoom chat, add your name in the, raise your hand in the Zoom call, add your name to the chat, and I'll make sure that you're on that speakers list as well, because I think all of these stories are very important. So we're going to hear from Claire now. And where did you go, Claire? There we go.
Okay, I'm unmuting now. I don't want to say very much. It's just an anecdote and a word. The word that comes to me with what Laurentian is doing to all of us, anyone who's been part of the community before, is betrayal. It's nothing less than betrayal. Now, this anecdote, because I was glad to hear from a philosophy professor, because my degree is in philosophy and sociology. And what do you do with that? Well, when I went back to work after my children started school, I was interviewed for a job in addiction and mental health. And they hired me. And I couldn't understand why, not having any background in addiction or mental health. And they said, we weren't looking for a professional in addiction or mental health. We were looking for someone who knew how to think. We can teach you anything, but what your work experience and your education show that you're a person who knows how to think. And employers want that. They don't want little robots necessarily. They want people who are capable of making really good decisions and getting along with other people. That's it.
Thank you, Claire. Next, we have Estella Bouchard.
Oops. So earlier I was a little bit emotional and angry, and I was having a really hard time putting my point across, but I just wanted to say something really quickly. I did 2 years of neuroscience, and I'm currently in biomed. I'm aiming for medical school and a peds neurosurgery residency in Ottawa. And you could argue that my biomed degree is absolutely useless without graduate education. So I'm paying $7,000 a year to study biomed, then I'll be paying upwards of $20,000 a year for medical school, and then I'll be low income for years into my residency. I'll be making 6 figures in my 30s, but I would literally do it for a comfortable wage between 50 and 80K a year. It's not all about money. In the military, I get paid $50 per half day, $100 per full day. So if I work 8 hours, I get paid $100. If I work 24 hours, I get paid $100. It's strenuous. I don't sleep. I'm exhausted. Why do I do it? Because I love it, because I'm passionate about it for the people. It doesn't always have to bring a dollar. Our value as humans, isn't determined by a dollar. If I have a roof over my head, food in my stomach, a car to get to work, I'm happy. If I want to learn something, I'll go learn it in the right way, even if it costs money. Not everyone's life revolves around capitalism. So that's just how I think of it. I would rather be buried with my name in history books and scientific journals, leaving the world a better place than I found it, than to be buried with my big fat wallet that means absolutely nothing once I'm gone. that's just how I feel about it. I think that putting education or putting money above education is ignorance at its finest. And honestly, those same people making the decision to cut these programs could very well benefit from these types of programs. Maybe it would give them a little bit more compassion, or give them at least some sense of human decency, because this is unbelievable. And I'm really sorry to everyone that this affects directly, because it made me really sad this morning. It didn't affect me. It doesn't affect me directly because I'm a STEM student, but it made me sad because I see a lot of ignorance in the world every day, even when I'm not at school. And these programs are there to help these people and help us get out of that hole that we're in. And I feel like we're never going to do that if people keep shutting us down and putting tape over our mouths, basically.
Thank you, Estella. So next we have Alora Conrad.
Hi, everyone. I just can't seem to get my video working. But, oh, there you go. So I'm actually just here because I'm also a student, and a lot of, I'm getting emotional because everyone's emotional today. But a lot of other students have mentioned that they're feeling this way today because it's been quite a big 24 hours. But I think what I'm going to say is just, there's a lot of things I want to say. Sorry, I'm like rambling all of a sudden. I'm really, really upset. I'm a math student, but I took my minor in Ancient Studies. And one thing that will stay with me after I graduate in the next year, because I graduate in 2022, it's not going to be my math classes. I can tell you that much. It's going to be all the times I had my Ancient Studies classes that I absolutely loved. And it's interesting to me that people say the president has said that the students are always the first, or our first people that we think of, and they're the most important people, when every single person I've talked to since yesterday has had an opinion on what's happening because it's affected them in one way or another. This is affecting more people than we know, because the humanities and the classes taught by Thornlow, Huntington, and University of Sudbury have touched every single student at Laurentian in one way or another. If it's not directly them, it's people that they know, and these programs are more important than we know. I wrote about it in my Facebook page posts. I've been making many Facebook posts because I don't know where else to share my anger and my frustration. So Facebook has been my outlet today. But I wrote saying people don't understand how devastating this is. And it's true. I've heard so many people say that they just don't know what to do. And I totally agree. I wish this announcement had have not come before a long weekend, because it feels very untrustworthy that they announced this before a long weekend when they know that none of us can reach anyone until Tuesday. And then being on Tuesday, anyone having the chance to reach anyone is going to be very lucky, because I would be surprised if they don't get bombarded with a crap ton of emails tomorrow on Tuesday. So I just wish there was more transparency with the university. I find myself very lucky because my minor, I only need one class left. So I am very lucky in that sense. I'm not in as much trouble as many other students, but that doesn't mean that there aren't students that are in that position. And not many people know me in here, but I have a loud voice and I like to use it. So I'm speaking up for the people that can't speak up for themselves because they're too scared, or they don't know what to say, or they don't know how to say it. This decision is affecting most, if not all, the population of Laurentian, and we need to do something about it. This is not acceptable. I'm so angry at the fact that how it was presented to us, how we didn't have the chance to say anything for ourselves, and how it feels like there's no out for any of us. If there's any other students in the video today, just know that you're not alone. We're all in this together, not to quote High School Musical, that came out totally, not even thinking. But we are a community and we are here to support each other. I think there's so much more that I could say, but I think everyone has their own little bits and pieces to say today. I just wanted to speak up because I like I know I like being able to know that my voice is being heard and that my voice can possibly help other people. So that's why I'm here today, and that's all I'm going to say before I start bawling my eyes out. So thank you so much for giving me the chance to speak today.
Thank you very much, Laura. Next we have Joud Alem.
Okay, you hear me? Sorry.
Yep, we hear you.
Okay, sorry, I was on mute. Okay, thank you. Two questions of clarification, maybe for Fabrice, maybe also someone who knows the regulation of Senate. I know that we have got a meeting this coming Monday, but we have a big Senate meeting on Tuesday, all the day, I guess. My question is this one: what is the regulation if we want to, if we feel that we need another day of meeting, you know? How can we, enfin, je vais poser la question en français. Qu'est-ce que dit les règlements du Sénat si nous avons besoin de 2, 3, 4 autres réunions d'une journée pour bien parler? Est-ce qu'on peut obliger, enfin, qu'est-ce que dit le règlement du Sénat? C'est peut-être une question pour toi, Fabrice.
Thank you for the question. I'm not seeing Fabrice in the call.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, nice.
Darius. Oui, merci, Jawad. Disons que ce n'était pas tout à fait le sujet de la réunion d'aujourd'hui, mais sache qu'il y aura une réunion préparatoire au Sénat qui sera tenue lundi et on pourra aborder ces questions-là à ce moment-là. Donc, je suggère qu'on en discute à ce moment-là et qu'on, si tu veux, garde l'attention de la réunion actuelle sur la situation des universités fédérées. Merci.
Ok, ben, je pensais que c'était quand même un petit peu en relation. J'ai rejoint la réunion un petit peu tard là, mais il me semble qu'au Sénat, nous allons parler de choses qui regardent les universités fédérées. Mais c'est bon, on en reparlera lundi. Ok, merci. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jennifer Haywood. I'm not seeing, I can't, there we go. Okay. Sorry, Jennifer, I'm just having a hard time finding you in the Zoom call. There we go.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, that was technically difficult. Thank you for holding on.
Sorry
Miigwech, Darius, for the brilliant way in which you're running this. I just wanted to, I would say many things that other people have said, how absolutely astronomically important the arts are to a university. I feel that this last maneuver by the administration has been a way of getting rid of the arts, and Sudbury and the North of Ontario cannot do without the arts. It will not function. It will go so far backwards. Alors vraiment, j'espère que tout le monde à Sudbury, mais dans le Nord aussi, vont venir soutenir les universités fédérées parce que c'est haineux ce qui se passe présentement. I have never been in such a colonial process in my life. I find that the administration of Laurentian, and I say specifically Laurentian, not of the other federateds, are acting like a dictatorship, and we must rise up, but we must all rise up together. I did want to just say one thing. There's so much talk about how much money professors make, and I don't teach for the money. And to prove that to you, I will tell you that I have taken the number of hours I work in a week, I've divided it by my pay. When I worked full-time, I was making between $10 and $13 an hour, depending on the week. Now that I'm part-time, I'm making the equivalent of $8 an hour. So I get very frustrated when people think that we make too much money. If you could see how hard professors work all day long for the love of education, for the love of watching their students grow. And I'm on board with everyone else. This administration does not know what education is. Encore une fois, je ne parle pas de l'administration de l'Université de Sudbury, ni de Thornlow, ni de Huntington. C'est l'Université de Laurentien. I feel like there's a dictator running it. This process of the CCAA is not a process a university should be going through. I apologize for all my emotions, but I know my colleagues are not in the least bit surprised. Miigwech, merci.
Thank you, Jennifer. To speak to that, I think a lot of it's the view of our student associations a little bit that, you know, this isn't going to affect students and that, you know, everything is fine and this is just about professors. And there is that mentality that a lot of people have, that they think that it's students against professors. And it really can't be that way. What's going to happen to one group of people is going to affect the other. And I don't think anybody should be hurt by this. Nobody should be put into the vulnerable position that we're all being put into. And we really do have to stand up together when it comes to facing the administration, right? I don't think it should be a question about, you know, the salaries of professors. We have to do what we can to be sustainable. We have to, you know, lobby the government to help us. And we need that accountability from the Board of Governors, who are making decisions for us that we have no part in. So next on my list, I have Jose Turcotte, and that's the last person on my list right now. If anybody else wants to jump onto that speakers list, feel free to message in the chat or raise your hand in the Zoom call.
I did find out yesterday night, actually, what the president did. And I really find, I remember Mr. Meehan talking about the federation, that he compared it with the federation in Canada that gives the parole to every province, and they have all have a say, and it has to be equal somehow. And I found that he was saying that, you know, Laurentian University has to respect this. And I really find that the president that we have right now is unable to share, unable to be, you know, he has to dominate the situation. He has to be a dictator. And I agree totally with that. What I find especially difficult for people that are not at Laurentian, the other universities, is that somehow for us, professors at Laurentian University, we're scared. Since February 1st, we're scared to lose our job. It's been every day, we got a knot in our stomach. We don't know if we're going to be cut. We don't know which criteria they will be using. Now, they were talking about the federation, but it was not something they were talking a lot. So it came up to me like a surprise. I know Réal was talking about that yesterday during the day. And I said, well, we'll see, we don't know. And it just came up like a surprise a bit. Whereas for us, faculty at Laurentian, we just don't know. it's been 2 months. And what we know, what we understand is that there will be cuts. So there will be loss in faculty. Now, what we know is Laurentian will stop the relationship between, you know, they will stop to have a relationship there. So for me, if I was in the shoes of the president in the other university, I would wonder, is there any possibility for us to become independent and functional and to function independently and to get that grant directly to us instead of going through Laurentian? To me, that's the question I would ask. You know, if you can convince the Romano and Four Nation, Ford, to give the money directly, then that would solve the problem. Is there any way they can give that power very quickly? And I don't know if those universities still have the religious component to it. University of Sudbury seems to say that it's over, like they've kind of cleared that out now. So I'm just wondering here, is there any way for you to be independent? Because in other words, what it means is it would not be the end of it. Maybe there are solutions for the other universities. And that's what I'm hoping for you guys, that you'll find solutions. We know at the Senate we'll be voting for cuts. I know that. It's Tuesday. It's happening the whole day. So we know that we will have to cut people too, and we'll have to close down programs. No matter how good those programs are, how meaningful they are, I know they will ask us to cut. We don't want to do that. We don't feel like doing that. We want to keep everybody. Like, from my point of view, they should find other solutions, but the Senate is not there to find those other solutions. So I'm just saying, guys, from the other universities, speak up, try to get the government to send you the money directly so that this can go on, this can continue, because those programs are very important, and I agree with you. So that's what I want to say, is that I think maybe something can be done, and maybe you can live without Laurentian. Maybe it's possible. So, miigwech bye.
I'm going to hear from Jen Johnson next, and she's able to speak a little bit to your question.
Thank you very much, merci, José, my wonderful colleague, who's always willing to speak up. And oh my goodness, so many of us raising our voices tonight. I want to speak to the issue of the idea that the Federation, that these universities would sort of go their own way. When I came to Laurentian University, I arrived with my little family, you know, and we were set to put down roots here and contribute to our community. What I asked at my job interview was, where is, you know, is there another program in women's and gender studies at Laurentian? Is this the program? It is in fact the program. It sickens me that Laurentian would distance itself from programs that deal with the type of content that we do, that would distance itself from programs that are directly involved in the decolonization of this space. Thank you, Indigenous Studies, for being so out loud and vocal and proud of what you do. And to my colleagues who support these values from within the feds, like, we're here and we're working for Laurentian. Whether the money comes and gets skimmed off the top at Laurentian, whether it comes direct to us, we are producing Laurentian degree granted students. That's what we want. That's who we are teaching. That's who we are dedicated to. And so, yes, the universities exist with their own acts of parliament. They could do other things. But the reason we are here, the main reason we are here with these programs, is to teach Laurentian students. You are my students. We are your faculty. So I know that's not a detailed answer, but we are here for Laurentian students. And that's why I need to see you all graduate and come through our programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. So I don't have anybody else on the speakers list. If anybody wants to hop on now, they should feel free to. Oh, we do have somebody. Ruben Roth. Let me find you, Ruben. There you are.
Am I in? I'm good. Okay. I think this has been a fantastic meeting, and I'm grateful, and I was tearing up from right from the start, Jen. It's your fault. And it's also the fault of all the wonderful things that students have said about us. This trouble started with the province underfunding us and all other universities. And I have no doubt that the province will come in at the end of the process, only after it's cheaper for them to bail out Laurentian University. But the deed will have been done by then, and it'll be too late. So I've been demanding that the province step in immediately. But I'd like very much for some sort of consensus to come out of this meeting here today. And I noticed that a couple of people took up the call asking for Robert Hachet's resignation. Do you think that's something? I'm cutting right to the chase. I could go on. You've all laid out some wonderful reasons. Here's a person who misunderstands his job. He has no respect for the arts. He has no respect for students. In fact, he shows contempt for staff, faculty, students, and the community. Can we come out of here with some sort of group consensus calling for his resignation? Later on, somebody can sort of write up a quick press release or something like that that says we came out of this meeting and we asked for two things. One, the province needs to fund us right now, not after we're slimmed down, not after Hachet has made it cheap for them. And the other thing we have to come out of here with is a consensus that he has to resign right away. He's doing us incredible damage. And I for one, none of us want to stand by and see him decimate our university. We have something wonderful here. We have something beautiful here. And he's an outsider. He's a stranger. He doesn't get it. He has no respect for what we do. We need to demand his resignation. We need to call for him to step down immediately.
Yeah, I think that that is something that I'm hearing a lot in the chat. Don't worry, I see the hands. We'll get to you. But I think that is something we need to talk about. A lot of what the work that we've been doing has been directed towards the government and trying to get that funded, that badly needed funded, that has gone long away from our university for a while. The response to low enrollment being that we should stop students from going to get education in the North at all. And that history of underfunding. But I think that is one thing we have to look at, because a lot of the things that people say when we talk about, asking for this money is, it's Laurentian's fault. Where is the accountability? And that's something that we have, been vocal about as well. We do want that accountability at the board level, and we want that transparency and visibility. But I don't think we've actually ever really taken, the time to figure out what that looks like and what that looks like when we talk about the work that we are going to be doing in our own community. So I think that we're going to take these two speakers, because I'm assuming that they're in relation to what we just talked about the president, and then maybe we could run a little poll just to see if that's something that you want us to be pushing for, about whether or not we want to be pushing for the resignation of President Hachet. So first we'll hear from Andrew.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you.
Okay, thank you. Well, I want to be the first to second Ruben's proposals. I think they're very well informed and very well expressed. Also, I've been thinking ever since Jose first spoke as a senator raising the question of cost per student, and also raising the question just now about whether the government would send money directly. I don't think that's in the cards. It's not the way things are set up. In fact, historically, that is precisely why Laurentian was created in the first place, so that money would channel through to the confessional institutions. So and as Jennifer also very accurately expressed, we are here to teach the entire community, which is the Laurentian community that we are part of equally. I, by the way, am teaching religious studies, which is not dead yet at the University of Sudbury. So back to the cost per student, and I want to raise a point that I think has been alluded to by a number of people. It's a question of truth and accountability and transparency. The cost per student is a smokescreen. A lot of us who have been here, at least in the past 2 years, will recall that 2 years ago, we had the first indications of a fiscal crisis that was emerging. This was long before COVID, long before Laurentian could slough it off on COVID. Laurentian was on the ropes with financial troubles, and there were cuts to the library, there were cuts to various programs, and the feds already were being targeted at that time with even larger cuts than the rest of the Laurentian Federation. We found ourselves talking to our presidents. We had town halls because we were in a crisis situation. It was not certain whether we would survive the next 2 years. Well, because of sound management, we have survived. None of us is in a financial crisis today. And Laurentian, meanwhile, has applied for this CCAA, which essentially gives it a license to kill with impunity, and the long knives are out. And here we have the announcement that we have just heard over the last day. The bottom line is that there is an honesty issue here, management issue, and accountability. I believe that there needs to be forensic accounting. There needs to be people questioned in terms of their competence. And so whoever is responsible needs to be called to account. And running to a judge by Laurentian is no substitute for dialogue and sound governance. I want to just finally add that along with so many others of you, I've been very, very impressed, inspired, and moved by all the students and colleagues who have participated today. I want to thank you from my heart because it just lifts me up. I've just been, along with so many of us, living in this uncertainty. And I want to say, keep your energy, mobilize, talk to friends, make noise, and make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. We're going to hear from Claire, and then I think that we're going to take the poll.
I've got to unmute. All right. I really agree that we should get Haché out of there because I think he's incompetent. But the other thing is, in the future, when we are hiring people in these positions, for heaven's sakes, let's have criteria that involves academic competence, because we've had presidents who basically did not understand what a university was, and that should never happen again. That's it.
Thank you, Claire. That poll is being set up, but let's hear from Catherine Champ. And if anybody else wants to be added to the speakers list, once again, let me know. I don't mind, as long as it means everybody getting their stories out there or things they have to say. I don't mind this meeting going as late as it has to go. So.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. I'm probably not going to say anything new, but I'm really grateful for this to be happening because I'm happy to see so many people just as enraged as I am. Wow, this is really it makes me shake. It gives me my heart is racing, but I'm a student that is being directly affected. I'm a third-year gerontology student. I'm also taking a minor in Spanish. So I'm kind of in like both, taking both things that are going to be directly affected. Before even hearing about this email last night, our Spanish program was already in jeopardy of being non-existent. Like last year, our prof was telling us to declare our minors because they kept cutting down and cutting down and cutting down the program. And so now there's just my one amazing professor in my program, Dora Radford. If you know her, she's absolutely amazing. And I think that kind of just adds to, you know, professors are really important in this process. You know, going into first year, I needed my linguistic credits, and taking my Spanish class, I fell in love with it, and I ended up having to minor in it. I wouldn't have done that without my amazing professors. And reading this email this morning is really disheartening, because I enrolled into Laurentian to pursue a gerontology degree. I didn't enroll into Laurentian to come into my third year and be told that, okay, your program's going to be cut, but, you know, we're going to offer you a different program, you know, similar, not the same, but that's what's going to happen. So it's very frustrating because I don't want to go into another program. Gerontology is what I'm passionate about. I'd met some of the most amazing professors in Huntington. I've taken classes in University of Sudbury, and I've had the most amazing professors in my Indigenous courses and my Women and Gender Studies courses. So to add on that, Up the Hill really is a safe haven. You meet so many amazing people and students, and it's just a total different atmosphere. And it's just, I really cannot believe that this is what we're going through right now. You know, I don't want a different alternative. I want my degree with Huntington, and I want everything to stay the way it is. And I don't think taking us Federated Universities out of Laurentian is going to solve anything but make things worse. And I don't know if anybody said this before, but I saw it online that there is going to be a protest, a socially distanced protest on Tuesday. We're going to be walking across the Bridge of Nations. It's from 8 to 9 a.m. holding signs. Yeah, I did see it online, so you could probably find it on Facebook. But yeah, that will be happening if people wanted to join in. So hopefully I see you guys there, wearing masks and being socially distanced.
Thank you, Catherine. Yes, that protest is actually being run by this group. Hopefully we can get those details dropped in the chat before we end. But what we're going to do to take the poll is because I'm noticing a lot of people saying that we should have everybody involved who isn't here. Time is very important with this because come Tuesday, we're going to be losing, people are going to be losing their jobs and livelihoods by the hour. So I think that what we'll do is we will take the poll here, and then we'll move to the rest of the people on our mailing list, and we can talk to them afterwards to make sure that, we have their opinions on this as well. So the mini motion that I have written here is that, and what we'll do to vote, everybody, is that we will, you will click the reactions, and you could get to reactions by, it's the bottom right of the Zoom call. And what you're going to do is you're either going to write yes, no, or if you don't wish to vote or vote in this manner, just feel free to abstain. Okay, so be it resolved that due to President Hachet's dereliction, I'm so sorry, everybody, of duty. I'm sorry, the chat is jumping all over the place. I'm trying to read it. Be it resolved that due to President Hachet's dereliction of duty, his duplicitous behavior, his use of the CCAA in a public university, his mismanagement of the university, his irrational demand to make the Federated Universities pay the price for years of poor decision-making by the Board of Governors, and the impact of this on students, that President Hachet and the Board of Governors resign immediately. So feel free to vote now.
I don't know how to vote.
Reaction on the at the bottom of the Zoom call.
Okay, I can't find it. Oh, okay, Zoom.
Okay, that looks like everybody, and I think that we have that recorded. So that is something that we'll explore, and then we will push for that in whatever that kind of looks like, if that's the direction that we want to go. Does anybody else have any stories that they want to add? Any sort of last minute questions? If not, we could wrap it up. Claire.
I wasn't able to vote because I couldn't find, but I definitely want to for sure.
Okay, thank you, Claire.
Okay, thanks.
Does anybody else have any last minute remarks? Okay, yes, a question from Emily Donato, and also looking for information on when that protest is. If somebody could put that information in the chat, I will make sure that we have Emily unmuted so that she can ask her question.
Hey, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry I don't have my video on. Yeah, this has just been really emotional seeing the email last night. Thanks everyone for everything, that you shared today. I think one of the questions I have is I'm hearing of this Senate meeting that's happening. I think I saw Tuesday, but then I heard something mentioned about Monday. Is there another meeting on Monday? If we take this vote and we take this vote out to our, let's say our different bodies, not just here, how can we also prepare, or what can be done prior to or with regards to those meetings that are occurring? I'm just not sure. I'm hearing things such as that's when the programs will be cut. That's when they're going to put out the plan. Just something else I just wanted to kind of ask about.
We'll go to Jen Johnson. Jen looks like they're on top of things with the answer. I believe the meeting is actually Tuesday. Jen, I think I accidentally muted you again. There you go.
All good. I'm mute, unmute. I'll still show up. Here I am. All right, such a good question that was just asked. What's happening on Tuesday is a special meeting of Senate that is going to be held in camera. Now, faculty senators are organizing to meet on Monday. We always meet before Senate. Anyone who is a faculty senator can join. It's a loofah caucus. However, there are other members that might end up attending, and that is really to discuss usually the regular business of Senate. So what's going to happen on Tuesday morning is a little bit irregular in the sense that we've been called on very short notice, pretty much in the same time frame as this business about the feds has taken place. Normally we're given a package in advance to look at. We have no package to look at. We'll be pulled into the meeting. We'll get to look at something confidentially. We'll have an hour to consider it. And then we'll be sent off in camera still, not talking to anyone, to think about what we've read. And then we're going to come back. We've been called back at 1 o'clock to vote, to endorse or discuss, but preferably endorse from President Haché's point of view, the package. Now, our strategy around that, I don't think it's a secret, is that we need to talk about how we're handling that. So while we are in whatever happens in that meeting, you hopefully will be protesting, sending letters, agitating, shit disturbing, doing whatever it is that you do to make your voice heard about what's happening in this community. So if you have a link to a particular program, you want to talk about it, get out there and talk about it. It's not going to hurt anyone at this point. So there are a number of different constraints that have structured this very false rubber stamping decision-making procedure. And you need to know that faculty senators that are going to come out of that meeting may or may not be able to speak openly in the way that they want to. That is something that we're facing and we're struggling with. So this is why we're talking now. We're talking now to you, to hear from you, to bring these views, and we want to put them right in front of senators, all of the senators, on Tuesday when we see the package. There's no other group in the university that's been allowed to go out and discuss things happening in the CCAA process. The faculty, LUFA representatives, the feds, they've been stakeholders. They've not been able to talk outside of the process. We don't know what has happened behind closed doors. And the Senate piece is irregular. We're going to be asked to vote on something that we don't normally do, that isn't really in our purview, and that will result in people's job losses. It's immoral and unethical, and yet that's what we have to do. I'm not sure if that answered your question. You can see I'm a little fired up about it.
Thanks. That did answer my question. I think I'd like to know also, you know, given the little vote we had today, just now, what else we can do. And I'll be looking to, you know, the group on Facebook and other perhaps maybe things from LUFA to kind of figure out how else we can actually help and support our colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily. And you know, when it comes to students, like, it does not hurt to speak your mind. No one can hurt you. No one's following you around looking for your names, anything like that. You have to speak out if you want to be heard. So thank you.
Thank you, Jen. So next on my list, I have Rachel Halliburton.
Thanks, Jen, for doing, and all the senators for doing this absolutely horrible, tough job. I'm just wondering, I saw the report about President Hachet's behavior at the last Senate meeting. It seems to me that they're going to give you, it's pretty clear, they're going to give you a take it or leave it, this is what we want to do kind of ultimatum. What would happen if you all simply refuse to vote on it? Is that even a possibility? Because I think what the university administration wants to be able to do is say that their plans were endorsed by the Senate. Is there any, I mean, I think they're going to implement their plans anyway, whether or not they get Senate approval, but is that even a possibility, or will you be forced to participate in this decision? What if you all said, no, we're not, we refuse to participate because this is a completely irregular procedure that's being followed, and it's actually an insult to the whole concept of collegial governance? Thanks. And again, thanks for doing this. I can only imagine how horrifying it must be at those meetings.
It is indeed horrifying. Thank you, Rachel, for acknowledging that. It is indeed horrifying. I never came to work with my colleagues to behave, to be asked to behave in this way. You know, the measure of the wellness of an institution is how we treat one another. And I've seen some violent things happen, you know, particularly at the Board of Governors. So no, the Senate meeting is not open to the public. And one of the things I think that we are looking at very carefully are the impacts of either voting, not voting, leaving, all of those things. And I don't think that's going to be a surprise to anybody. But the point is this, you know, it's possible that at the end of the day, out of an in-camera meeting, you could get a message like Laurentian Senate endorsed. And you need to know that this is just not the case. None of us want to engage in, sorry, I speak for myself. I do not want to engage in any type of practice that would cause another person to lose their job or cause a student in another program to suffer. It's not in the vision. So yes, we are being asked to engage in a process that is deeply unethical. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Okay, so next on my list, I have Jennifer Haywood.
Merci beaucoup. Hi, I actually have, sorry, Jen, another question probably for you. I'm curious if it means that we have to start the process to remove Pache before Tuesday, if that's even possible, or is it possible for Senate to vote on that? I'm sorry if I'm speaking a bit illogically. I'm sure you've never done this before. But I'm just wondering what the process is, because it seems to me that we are in agreement that the CCAA process is one that is not collegial and not meant to be used for universities. So how does one even counter that? Miigwech.
I think the answer to that question is that technically people in positions, administrative positions, such as the presidents, are the purview of the board of directors or board of governors, depending on the language in your organization. And so it would not be in the purview of Senate to do something like that. Senators can bring motions on almost anything given the right circumstances. Although I will say that I think Tasha Beeds said it earlier, and Megan Lalonde also said it earlier, and you may have said it earlier, Jen, but that, you know, the construction of these institutions were not built to protect us. They were built to gatekeep and order things in a certain way. The bar is set very low. All it is to stop stabbing people with swords, you know, in fist fights. That's the bar for these rules, is very low. So to remove someone from an office, I do not believe is possible at Senate. But it doesn't mean that you can't ask for it.
Thank you, Jen. Jen, I don't know why you're not up here and I'm the one up here. But next on the list, we have Stephanie Martens.
Oh, okay, thank you. I just wanted to jump in to give Jen a little bit of a break, and to confirm her answers and to follow up if necessary. I am a senator as well. And to answer Rachel's earlier question about, kind of refusing to vote on that restructuration package, I want to reassure her that this is exactly what faculty senators at least are thinking about, that it will be discussed at the caucus meeting on Monday, and that pretty much the goal of our discussion is to find out the most efficient and the most probably powerful way, in a symbolical way, to do that, so that indeed at the end of the day the president is not able to say, oh, Senate fully endorsed, and approves of the restructuration package. We don't want him to be able to say that, and we don't want him to be able to say either, oh, your Senate doesn't care and votes no, so that we completely close and go bankrupt. So we want to find the right way to show that this process is inappropriate, insulting, and while at the same time making sure that the consequences of our position and vote are not detrimental or even more, cause even more harm than what is being done right away, right now for anyone, including the Federated Universities. It's quite difficult to be a senator right now, but yes, I do confirm as well, whatever they end up saying at the end of Tuesday, be sure that we do not approve of any of these cuts on, supposedly academic criteria, when it is obvious that it is not helping anyone academically, including the students.
Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, so I think that we're going to start to end things down, to wind it down. So if anybody has any last minute things they want to say, last things they want to ask, I would ask that you get on the speakers list now. And after that, we're going to close the speakers list. So feel free to message the chat or raise your hand. I am not, see, the next meeting of this group, that is a good question. The next meeting of this group is on the 6th. Oh, sorry, not the 6th, the 7th. That is my bad. It's always a Wednesday. I'm not sure where that came from. But okay, I think that we're going to wrap things up. It was wonderful hearing everybody's stories. I know that things are going to be really difficult, but I do feel more comfortable knowing that we're all going through this process together, and we're all standing together in this, and we have each other for that support. So if you want to volunteer to help, Jordan just put a spreadsheet in the chat. If you would like your video so that you could post it, because everybody needs to hear this kind of stuff. If there's anything that you want extracted from this long Zoom call and you want heard, then feel free to reach out, and I can make sure that you get the snippet of your video so that could go to people in your circles. So, but yeah, no, I think that that is everything. So have a good night, everybody, and thank you for attending. Usually some of the organizers stay back to chat after. I'm not sure if you guys are able to unmute yourselves or if you guys are locked up there, but let me know and I'll I'll make sure.
Well, we can can I ask folks who are staying behind? I'll ask you politely to leave before I do it forcibly, because we do have the power now. And we're going about it. Okay, almost there. Zachary, did you have, did you want to talk to us and set up maybe an interview or something? No?
I think we have to ask him to unmute.
Oh, awkward. There we go.
Ah. I think I have, oh, all I can do is ask. Zachary, bonjour. You can use chat if you can hear us and are having